Hi guys, in this section I have gathered a lot of tips, lots of tricks and lots of methods and shortcuts on how to use After Effects. I want you to get the best of After Effects, and I want you also to get your work to be easy, simple and lots of fun. Also, you want it to be faster, not boring at all. Each lecture in this section will represent a method of work or a tip or a shortcut that will help you to work faster and better. So it's important that you take every lecture very seriously. Maybe you take note, you write it on a piece of paper, or you open After Effects and you start immediately practicing. I need this information to be cemented within your learnings and you practice them every time you work on After Effects. So please go step by step in this section for every lecture and try to get the best of each lecture. From time to time, it's important that you make copies or backup copies of your projects. Don't make one single file name like you see here and start saving and saving and saving while you're making a lot of changes and building your projects. It's important that you learn how to make, versions of the project. Now, I have this nice animation here. I'm very happy with it. And I want to save this one, and then later on I want to introduce some changes, but I don't want to over save this copy. So I want to have two copies, this one and the one where I'm gonna make changes. So what will I do? This is how I work. I will come to File and say Save. So now this copy of the project Coffee Shop is saved. Now I want to start introducing some changes. Before I start introducing the changes, what I do is I come to File and say Increment and Save. Notice what it says here. It's increment and save. It is not save and increment. So it's going to increment the name of the file or the project and then save it. Let's click and see what happens. I will say Increment and Save. Now the name here has become Coffee Shop 2. So I have the first version, Coffee Shop, which is considered as Coffee Shop 1, and I have this version, Coffee Shop 2. And if you come back to File, you notice this version is already saved. So it's very safe to start working because the previous version is saved and this version now is already saved. So if I make some changes, for example, and I put it in here, okay, I can come and save this one. Cool. So don't go always increment and save. Just save first. Then you can go File, Increment and Save. Now I have a third copy is Coffee Shop 3. Why you can do that without worrying about disk space and stories like this? If you come to your filing system, your browser in the file system or the file explorer, you find out that the size of the projects in After Effects is always very small. So actually there are no movies and stories like this that are kept inside the project, except when you're doing tracking. Now there will be a lot of information. The size of the project of After Effects are always very small. And please, from now on, you start your animation, you start your compositions, and you start your project, please come and do File, Increment and Save and make a new copy. And notice it's very small, you don't have to worry about it. Now what's good about this, because also I can come to File and Open Recent. The copies are all here and the other ones I have been working on. So I can see the first and the second and the third. So if I want to come back to the second, I can just click here and it's already over here. And I come to Open Recent and here you are. The three of them are here now in different order because I opened number 2. So using Increment and Save, first you secure your work and you make versions, upgrade, I would say, of your work or different versions, and then you can really be on the safe side. I hope this tip was very useful and please use it. I will see you in the next lecture. Now this is a very useful tip and I use it all the time because sometimes I get myself in trouble. For example, I have here a composition. I did the whole animation. I am very happy with it and I want to give it to the client or I want to upload it to YouTube and show my friends. Now I notice here that when I did the composition, I started with 1920 by 1080, which is a very high resolution. That's fine. Okay, but I don't want it 1920 by 1080. I want to reduce it to 720p. That is now 1280 by 720. Cool. if I change here and click OK, here I am, my whole composition or my whole work is destroyed. I have to come and change the scale of every layer, and I have animation with scales, so it's almost impossible and it's really very tedious to do it. What you can do, and this is a very useful tip, you come to File and you have here an option called Scripts. I hope you have seen it before, and there is Scale Composition. This is a script, it's a JavaScript that will scale your composition. How does it work? I will click on Scale, and before I scale here, I must make sure that no layer is locked. If any layer is locked, this one will not work. The scale composition will not work. Just give you a dumb null layer here. You can try it yourself here. I will remove the lock from here. That's the most important. So make sure there are no layers that are locked. And I say new composition width, and I want to reduce it to 1280. Okay, you can put any figure here, any number you want. That's okay, but of course you want to take care of distortion. And I will say scale. Notice nothing has happened. I will just look at my composition, and if I run it, it's cool. It's looking a bit smaller. I'll bring it back to 100%. It seems like nothing has scaled. But the magic comes when I right click on the composition setting. I find out it's now 1280 by 720. And it is really working very fine, and there is nothing to change or no work to be done. And this is an excellent tip. You can change to any size. You also can change by factor. For example, you can make it 1.5 bigger. And if I click OK, look at my animation, it's working very fine. What is the size of the composition now? It is 1920 by 1080. 1.5, of course, it will go back. So this is how you scale down or scale up your composition without having to scale all the layers. I'll put it back to 1280, and here you are. We have scaled everything and it's working very fine. Now remember that no layer should be locked. Let's lock a layer. Let's lock 2 and try it and see exactly what will happen with you, so you have a good idea what's happening when it doesn't work. I will go to scale composition. I say new scale, for example. I put it at 1920, whatever, and we scale. Notice you just have a null layer and your composition did not change in size. I will delete the null layer here. So from now on, to scale down or up your composition and scale all the layers and do not have any problem, please use the File, Script, and Scale Comp. Thank you very much for listening, and I will see you in the next lecture. Let's review a bit or see how we can move the anchor point with precision. Let's draw a rectangle here, and it is somehow not in the middle of the composition. And this is the anchor point of the whole shape layer. Now I want to move that anchor point. The first one, I can use Control, Alternate, and Home to move the anchor point in the middle of the shape. You notice now the anchor point is in the middle of the shape. That's very good. Or also you can say if your shape, for example, was as big as the composition, here it is, and you have moved the anchor point and you want to return it to the middle, you press Control, Alternate, and Home, and it goes back to the middle. Let's delete the big one. Now I have my shape here and I want to move the anchor point. I can hold it and move it, but now it's moving freely 100%. That's not good at all. I will go back to Control, Alternate, and Home, put it in the middle. Now the first option is to use snapping, and I'm not using these two. I'm not going to explain these two about snapping here. I'm just going to explain about the anchor point. Now if I move the anchor point now, it will move to the corners or to where there are some delimiters for the shape. Okay, but then if I now want to use snapping, I can hold Control and now it will also snap. So without Control, it will be moving freely. With pressing Control, I will be able to snap it. It will also show you how is it moving. This is, for example, the middle line, and if I'm here, this will be the vertical line in the center, and I can move it to the corners anywhere I want. Now I'm holding Control. Cool. So remember, Control Alt Home to put it in the middle of the shape layer or in the middle of the layer if you have a different kind of layer and you moved already the anchor point, and using the Control we snap it to the delimiters, And you can use snapping, and it has some options here which I will explain in a different lecture. Thanks very much for listening. That was a small tip. I know it's very helpful, and I will see you in the next lecture. Let's look at how we can navigate in between or from one frame to another. I have here a circle where the anchor point is just in the middle of the composition and in the middle of the overall layer. I press Ctrl Alt Home and bring it in the middle of the shape. Fine. I will open position like I've done here. I will keyframe, go through frames in front, and then move it here, then move it down here. I just want to create a number of keyframes, very speedy. So now I have a small animation, or a very nonsense animation, just to show you how to navigate. So I want to come back to the first keyframe. If I click on the motion path, I'm not going back to the keyframe. The timeline indicator doesn't move. One way to do it is use the key J. You go backward. So you're navigating here. J will take you backward in the keyframes. K will take you forward. And that is only for the visible keyframes. If the keyframes are not visible, you have very many layers, and you have chosen this layer, and you cannot see it here, it will not move. You try it. So this is the first one. The second one, you have the arrows here. You can navigate from one keyframe to another using the arrows, and that is very important. That's one. So here I have an animation, and it's working. Now I like how it's working, but I don't like the timing. What I want to do is to make the time a bit longer, but I want to not to move every keyframe like this. That will be a bit nonsense. I will select all my keyframes, press Alt, click on the last keyframe and drag it this way, for example. Now notice that something is happening in the motion path, but it's just a matter of refreshing. So the keyframes, all of them moved proportionally, meaning the distance in between keyframes have been incremented proportionally. And that's how you can use it. If you select all your keyframe, you press Alt first, then click and drag. Okay, if you click and then press Alt, the whole thing is moving and is not moving proportionally. So you press Alt and you move them. You can move them here and there. Now what happens if I choose only the last 4 or 5 keyframes? I will press Alt and move them. You notice the first keyframe is always an anchor keyframe. This is the one that will not move. And also I can do the same. I can select them all and press Alt and move this way. Okay, so you notice the last keyframe now is an anchor keyframe. It's not an anchor here, it's an anchor meaning it's a stable keyframe. And this is how you can do it. You can also choose your middle keyframes, press Alt and just move them the way you want. In summary, K will move you forward, J will move you backward, and of course you can come and take your keyframes, select them and move them anywhere you want. And also you can use the keyframe navigator here, and you can choose them, all of them, press Alt and stretch them in, keeping the distance in between the keyframes proportional or not. So that's the small tip about how to navigate the keyframes, and I'm sure these are the most important tips. Maybe there is something else you can use, but that's the best tips. I'll see you in the next lecture. Sometimes there are some layers that you really don't want to see in your timeline. You want just to hide them away, and then later on you can bring them back. But mainly when we're creating templates, you don't want to show the client or the person buying the templates, the null layers and the adjustment layers. You don't want to show them this, because if you show them, they start messing them up. So there is a very nice option in After Effects to be able to show and hide certain layers. For example, here the null layers, I don't want to show them. So I will select them, select the first one, press Ctrl, select the second one, and Ctrl and select the third one. Here you are, I have the 3 layers selected. Now there is an option here which is the shy option. If I press the shy option, these layers, like you see here, will be earmarked for being shied away, so they are not seen. And if I want to shy them away, I will just come to the composition here. I will hide all the layers. Now they are hidden. Of course, these layers are still within the composition, and these layers will render, meaning if I shy the premium here, That's pretty good. Fine, I put it back. You notice premium, I shied it away, but premium here is not going to disappear from the comp. So when you shy a layer, it will not disappear from the composition. It will just disappear from the view in the layer. That was a small tip, and it's, you know, sometimes very convenient to use that tip where you decide, okay, look, I'm working on all these projects and I really don't want to see all these layers. I want to hide from here, for example, these coffee cups. I want to hide them, and I want to hide all the shape layers. Just I will put them to shy and then enable shy, and then I have something neat and I know what I'm working with within the composition. I can just choose them. So I hope this tip was useful to you and you can use it and don't shy away from it. From time to time, you might want to see the animation of a single layer. You don't want to see all the other layers. For example, I want to see how shop is being animated. I can come to the layer shop, I already chose it, and enable the switch solo. Solo hides all other layers except the one that are soloed. So if I press on the solo here, it will be soloed. This is the only layer that I will be able to see during the preview. Okay, I can also choose more layers to preview. Here you are. Now you have chosen 3 layers that are soloed, and that's the only layers you are going to see. So this is extremely useful because sometimes you want to see only what's happening to one single layer. If you notice here, the background is somehow confusing. If I want to see it alone, I start my animation now, my preview, and I will see only the animation of these solid layers. So if I add also shop and coffee and now I can see the animation of only the layers that have been solid. Fine. But there is a trick here, be careful. When you solo layers, these layers will render alone. The other layers will not render. It means in your video, when you produce one, you will not have the other layers. How to overcome this? If you come to composition and say, okay, add to render queue, and you come to best setting, you have an option here, solo switches. Current setting means you are going to render only the layers that have been soloed. But if you put all off, you are going to render all the layers, soloed or not. It really doesn't matter. And usually this is the default, so be very careful. If you soloed some layers and you forgot to set that setting to all off, then you will have only these layers. Let's try an example. So I will say okay here, and then I come to my composition. You know, I'm soloing only these layers. I will come to render queue and I go to lossless. Let me adjust it, and I want AVI. Let's take quick time. I'm okay with all that. Let's render. Now watch the rendering preview. All the layers have been rendered because I put all off for the solo layers. So this is how you use your solo switch, and make sure that before you render, you have soloed or unsoloed the layers, or make sure that the layers are appearing. A similar option, or the inverse option, is to hide and show a layer. So if I hide a layer, okay, see it, then of course it's not gonna be rendered. So I hope this tip was useful, and make sure you are using it very cautiously, but it's very useful when you are doing animations. There are some few keystrokes to manipulate layers that I used in the course. Here I want to make a small summary and to remind you about them. Let's say, for example, I have the animation here, and these ones are not coming in the beginning. I will select the 3 layers, press U, and notice the first keyframe is here. So there is no point of having these appearing or having this layer just showing here. The first thing I can do is to position. I use K to position and drag the layers. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is to select your layers, press the Alt key and press on the left bracket. Here you are. It will cut off the layers from the timeline to the beginning of the comp. In the same way, I can say, okay, I don't want these layers to appear or to be here until the end of the composition. I want to cut them off from the timeline till the end. I will select the layers like I have done. I press alternate and right bracket, and it cut them off. And that is pretty useful from time to time, and we have used that in sequencing your layers. If you didn't do that lecture, please go back and do it. Now I want to position at the beginning of the layer. How do I position on the beginning of layer? I can come and harass like this. It's not gonna work. So there is one keystroke is the I go to the beginning of the layer, O to the end of the layer, and this is very useful. Now you remember it's I and O. So these are the two tips I want to tell you about, manipulating the layers, the in point and the out point, and how to trim a layer. Most of the time when you're working on motion graphic or even videos, in fact it's more useful in videos, you really don't want to start previewing from the beginning. You want just to limit to a certain time that you are working with. For this, After Effects give you these options. First of all, this gray bar here is called the work area. You have work area start and you have work area end. And this determines the work area, and you have to be very careful also when you render about the work area. We'll go through that. Now, I can start the work area, for example, at 1 second and end it at 2 seconds. Now I want to play only what's inside, and this is how I did the setup here to show you previews. It's time to show you how I did it. I will open the preview panel, stretch it down to the maximum. So first of all, in the preview here, you have go to the first frame, go to the last frame of the whole comp. But since we have done this work area, let's put it here, you also have go previous frame. I will click on it and you see it's moving frame by frame, or you can use a page up to use frame by frame. You see I'm pressing page up, and to go to the next frame you will press page down. Okay, this is very useful mainly when you're doing rotoscoping or you're doing a lot of other things. We have seen these things, I think. Okay, that's one. Then the shortcut. The shortcut, instead of coming to click play stop here, you can just press spacebar and you start playing. Cool, that's very nice. I never use the spacebar. I just like to come here. Actually, I don't like reaching for the keyboard. Now, here you have the option cache before playback. Now, this option is coming from the previous version of After Effects. We use to cache, so it will play the animation and cache it all in the memory, then play it back and we can preview it. But now the system has changed a bit where you play, cache and preview at the same time. So it's up to you if you want to go back to the old system where first of all you cache it, meaning you put it in memory, the whole animation, or only in your work area and then play it, or you can just do like I've been doing since the beginning of the course without this option. I like it very much without this option because I can see the playbacks and I don't have to RAM preview them. It's very useful when you're using a computer that has only 4 gigabyte memory or 8. Now, play from, and that is now very nice. It's about start of range or current time. Now, I have always set it to current time. Current time means I start from where the timeline indicator is. If I press play, you notice it will start from here and go to the beginning. Let's make it longer for you to notice. I'll come from at 2 seconds, and if I say play with the current time, you notice it will start from here and then it's playing only the work area. So you notice here the range also I did it. It's only the work area that is played. It will play from work area start to work area end only. And that's very useful. Let's say you have a movie or even this animation, so you can just focus on this portion of your composition and really work on it. When the mouse pointer is like double arrows, you can click on it and move your work area with the same number of seconds. For example, this is 2 seconds now. I can click on it and just move it, and then when I press play, now it's gonna start playing from this work area. Of course, it's empty. Let's put it here, and I'll take it to the beginning, and I press this. Very fine. Now let's double click here to start my work area from here. I don't have to come to this point and drag it in. What I can do is to press B, and then this is the beginning of the work area. Now I want the work area to end here. I will press N. Now these are the shortcut B and N. Also you can come and now click, of course, move it the way you want, like we said. Okay, and you start playing because you have work area here. It start playing from the work area. Or you can say, you know, they have so many options here. Work area extended by current time. For example, if I put it here, it will start playing work area by extended time, and here you are, it start from here and it will stop at the end of the work area. So, and also you have entire duration. That is the entire duration of the composition. So it starts from the timeline indicator. So, and also you have other options, play around current time and so on. You know, like you are playing here, you say, okay, I want to play only the 2 seconds around the current time. Not useful at all unless you're doing complicated movies and you don't have memory. Cool. So let's put it on the work area, and this is how you delimit the work area. To return the work area to its normal, you know, to the full comp, you just come to the work area and double click. This is about the work area and the current time. Now, the frame rate here. The frame rate, always leave it to auto. In my case, it's showing 25 in between brackets, meaning that this composition is 25 frames per second, and I put the frame rate to automatic. I can really change it to 24. Now notice the brackets have disappeared. So you know you set this value and it's not the default value. So the best is to leave it to auto, otherwise you know how you render. Now the interesting thing is the full screen. Full screen is a bit annoying, but from time to time you will want to use it. For example, I take the full screen and I say play, and it will switch to full screen. Of course, now the resolution that I'm using is a bit odd, so a part of the view of the composition is cut off because I'm recording. Now to go back to normal view, just click and it goes back. You notice how you saw these white ones here. It's a memory issue. So using the work area and the preview, you can actually, you know, make your work a bit easier and really preview only the slice or the portion of time that you want to view. So please use these options, and I will see you in the next lecture. You know very well that in After Effects you cannot group layers, meaning you cannot say, okay, I want this layer and this to be in a group. You can pre-compose, that's true, but that's not a group. You know, in Photoshop you can group them under layers, and in Illustrator also you can do the same, but in After Effects you cannot do that. What you can do is to play with the label. That's very easy. You notice here you have the label icon, and you can change the color of any label. If you click on it, you can make it yellow. So this label now is yellow, and the dots here are the delimiters are yellow, and that's pretty beautiful. Now it's much better. You notice that in the course in the beginning I used also the yellow. So here I will come and click on the label and make them all yellow. Now, since they are all the same color, what I can do is to click on one of them and say select label group. It will select all the yellow for me. If I come to this one here, they are brown, I will click on it and go to select. It will select all the PNG. Now, where are these initial settings? You will come to, let's deselect, you will come to edit. If you are on the Mac, go to file, please. Go to edit, and you have preferences, and you go to labels. Here you can set the labels for all what is in After Effects that you can put as a layer. You have a composition, video, audio, and solid, and so on, and the adjustment layer, and you have the text that is red. You can change that, for example, to make it yellow. And now any new layer that you will create will stay yellow. And when you save your project, these settings will stay there. I'll click OK. Notice that the other text layers also have changed because they have never changed before. But if I had changed them to another color, then they will not be yellow here. I can do the same for the other layers, depending on how you want to use them and how you want to change the colors and make them attractive for you. You can come to shape layer here, click on the blue and make it orange. Where is orange? Here. Okay. And if I click OK, you notice that it has changed to orange here because I didn't change them before. If I change them, then they will not go back to orange. Now notice the PNG here, I cannot see the delimiters. If PNGs are very important for me, I can select the 3 of them, click and go make them, for example, lavender if I like to. Now this is very nice, but also it's nicer when you come to edit and you go to preference and label and click on one of the colors, for example the yellow here, and you know we make it some funny color that we want, something like this. let's make it hot. Okay, you know, take this color, something like this. So you change the color here. If you click OK, now it might change here. So you can change the colors the way you want, and this will serve as grouping the layers. This is pretty useful, in fact, because later on you want some layers to be outstanding. So you will come and change the label and make it, for example, seafoam, and it's a bit outstanding from the rest. I encourage you to use these labels. Don't just go for what After Effects has put as red for text. And in fact, red is not nice, it's not good. Use it, change the colors, or make your settings the way you like so you can feel comfortable how you are working in After Effects. I'll see you in the next lecture. Let's bring in a video here. We go to Import, File, and from the movie clips, for example, I will take this bubbles, okay? And I click Import. Now let's create a new comp here just for the fun of it. Now I want to compare the state at 15 frames, for example, and 1 minute. How did the bubble move? What I can do, I can come to 15 and take a snapshot. And maybe you heard the sound, it give me a snapshot. I'll go to 1 second, for example, and I want to compare. So what I can do is to click on show snapshot. It will show me the one where it is 15 frames. This is where I took the snapshot. And this is pretty useful to understand what is happening in the movie or to compare two shots. It's a useful one. You will get used to it. If you have it in mind, it will be really useful. For example, here, let's take the shot of the first frame and we shoot it and we go to the end. We want to compare it the end equal to the first one. All I have to do is just click here, and I notice there is a small, you know, deviation from the beginning. So this video is not seamless. It means the last frame is not equal to the first frame. So this is the first one. I took a snapshot. I go to the end. I preview the snapshot. Well, it's not perfect. And that's the use of the snapshot here. And I hope you use it. I hope you remember it, so you don't figure out, start moving from here, trying to remember it, moving to here, and okay, what was happening there. So this is a small tip, but pretty useful tip. I'll see you in the next lecture. Let's go back to work area navigation. I only want to put them all with the preview in one lecture. It will become boring. Now remember, we have work area start and we have work area end. I can position my timeline indicator anywhere I want. Press B and the work area start will go to the timeline indicator. I can position it at 3 seconds, for example. Press N and the work area end will go to the timeline indicator, but notice it is +1 frame. Now, useful keys are home. When I press home, it will go to the beginning of the composition. If I press end, it will go to the end of the composition. These are very useful. But what happens if I want to go to the beginning of the work area? I can press shift and home, it will go to the beginning of the work area. Shift and it will go to the end of the work area, and this is pretty useful. I can also use the page up to move 1 frame up. You notice here it's 1 frame up. I can use page down to go 1 frame down. That's pretty cool. I can use the control and the right arrow to go 1 frame up also. And these are very much used when you're doing rotoscoping, painting, or whatever. And if I use control right arrow, I will go down. Now, it's very interesting that if you're here, for example, and you want to move 10 frames down, and that is very important to set up your keyframes. You can use control shift and right arrow, you will go 10 frames down, or you can use shift and page down, you will go 10 frames down. Also control and shift and left arrow, you will go, you know, up and down. This is control shift page up, you will go up, and shift page down, you will go down. These are very nice manipulation that you will really want to use. So please use this shortcut to navigate around. I will see you in the next lecture with some other useful tips. In this lecture, we are going to see how to replace videos in the timeline by other videos or images. Now, sometimes you have worked all your video and you have put some effects here, you're very happy from them, to notice later on that you don't want to use that video, you want to use another video. And if you bring the other video, for example, and drop it in, copy your effects, you might make mistakes and mainly The mistakes could be keyframes or whatever you want, you know, something will go wrong. So to make sure that you are replacing one video by another without making any changes at all except the video itself, what you do is very easy. First of all, you come to your layer, you select your layer, you go to your project panel here and select the new video that you want to put in the timeline down there. You press Alt or Command on the Apple and you click and drag and you drop it on the highlighted layer. Immediately the video will change, and notice that only the video and all the effects are there. You will replace the two videos just in an instance. Why this is very important and very useful? First of all, if you're doing templates, you would have created a template for certain, let's say, transitions for videos, and you want to change these videos, or you want to sell your templates and you want to put a small remark. This is where you change your videos, and this will be the best way for you to replace your videos without having to redo any work or any cut and paste. The same thing works for images. Let's take this image. Notice the size of this image is very big. I'll take a smaller one. This one, 1920 by 1280, and we drag it to create a new composition. Now I have the image here. Imagine I have done a transition. You can, put any transition that you want here, and you want to replace that image. Let's add a transition here. For example, we go to dissolve. We have seen these things already in the course. We pick any one of them just for the demonstration. And here you have your transition coming in. Now you don't want that image, you want another image. After having worked on your transitions, you made it perfect. You want to change to the next image, which is, for example, this one. To preserve all the animation and the keyframes and the effects that you have done here, you will do the same. In your project panel, you click on the image, you press Alt, Command if you are on the Mac, and you drag it and drop it on the layer that you have highlighted already inside your comp. Here you are. It has changed completely, but still the image or the transition is still there. Here you are. That's pretty good. You can also take this one. This is a 1920 by 1440. If I press Alt, Command on the Apple, drag and drop, here you are. It has changed, but yet all the animation or all the transition are still there. You can replace images with videos by using the same method. Let's say I select my image here. This is a JPEG. I'll highlight lights, for example, press Alt, drag and drop, and here you are. Of course, here you have some problems with the dimensions because light is very small. If I play it, still it is here. Now, unfortunately, it has not taken the same size. So you need to work it out here. For example, you come to lights, transform, and say fit to comp width, and maybe it will work here. It didn't work. Now you can do the same, replace the video with the image. If I press alternate, I can drop it in and it will replace it. Now, that's the way to work. Use Alt, drag and drop by highlighting the two elements, the one in the composition and the one in your project, and you can replace them very easily. So thanks very much for listening. This is a very useful tip and you will use it a lot when you are creating templates. I'll see you in the next lecture. From time to time, After Effects becomes very slow. Even for rendering and previewing, it will become quite slow. Now, in my computer, it's not very slow until now. So what do you do if your After Effects have become very slow in the rendering? There are several options that you can use, and you can use all of them. So the first thing you want to do is to come to Preferences, Media and Disk Cache. And here you have a maximum disk cache. For me, in this computer, this is my notebook, it is 67 gigabytes. You can hike it as much as you want. The bigger the disk cache and the lower memory you have, you're gonna have in problems. So 67, 60, 50 is very good if you are on 4 gigabyte. If you have more than 4 gigabyte, 8 or 12 gigabyte of RAM, then you can hike this one a bit more. You can change the folder. I don't advise you to change it, just leave it where it is because Windows tend to clean up this folder. You can also empty the disk cache, and this is very useful. If you click on it, you will notice that I have 5.3 gigabyte of disk cache. For me, on this computer, if the disk cache goes to 10 gigabyte, it will start running very slow. So first of all, you clean your disk cache, and this is very effective. Now I want to tell you that when you exit After Effects, normally the disk cache is cleaned. Now there is another one that I always like to clean, is clean database and cache. So I click on this one and also click on this one. It does some cleaning, and it's a database, like it will refer to it from time to time to be able to run your work faster. But bigger it grows, it will become even slower. Now if you notice a bit, maybe it have been a bit better, right? It will run faster. Notice it's running very fast now until it start rendering again. Cool. Another way to do it, you notice here I'm running on full. That means it's a full pixels for all the videos I put here, and there are 4 of them. You can reduce that if you don't need the full. Sometimes really you need to have on full when you're doing rotoscoping, when you're doing some kind of drawings here, you need to be on full, otherwise you cannot see what you're doing. So what you can do here is to put it on auto. The auto here, After Effects decided that half is okay. If you come to the preview, you will also notice that it is on auto and it's okay. I can see them on half here. I don't have a problem with that. If I click on preview, it's a bit better. Cool. That's one. But also you can go to quarter. If you're looking at animations, that will be okay. If you're working with After Effects and you are only having motion graphics, that means shapes and text layers and so on, always put it on full. It will work fine as long as you have 4 GB, and of course if you haven't opened other files and so on. But I will show you also how to overcome this. So I can put it on quarter, I can put it on a custom, I can put it on third, and it will be shown even better. There is one more thing you can do, is to come to the resolution, how to preview. This is the preview resolution here. If you look at it, it is fast previews. You can put it on adaptive resolution, and if you run it now, it will be a bit faster, not much. And you can also have a fast draft. Let's go to preview and preview it. It's okay, but that's pretty useful. Also the fast draft for motion graphic. You can have wireframe. It's not working here because these are videos, but if you had only motion graphic, here you are, you can really see what's happening. Now I can't see anything, there are only videos. But these are ways to speed up your work a bit if need be. Be careful, don't go always to quarter and start doing some manipulation here, because the pixels are really not very good to do some work. If you want to mask, don't use this resolution, try to use full, and you can mask it very nicely. Cool. This is the tip about how to speed up your work. The most important, always from time to time, come to preference and media and disk cache and clear your disk cache. Now notice it has already gathered only 163 MB. That's not important to clear. And clean database and cache. Cool. So these are some small tips that will help you out, and I'll hope to see you in the next lecture. This is a special lecture to answer a few questions. The question was, if you change the time in the main composition, how do you fix the time for a pre-comp or any other layer that you have in the main composition? It's a very easy, very simple. Go with me step by step. Let's say you have here a main comp that is 5 seconds. Inside there is a pre-comp and some other layers. It really doesn't matter what kind of layers. Now you want to extend the time here to 10 seconds. How do you do that? You most probably already know. You right click, you go to composition setting, and you set the time for 10 seconds. Here you are. So this is 10 seconds. You click OK. Now you notice the zoom here is still fixed. It did not change the zoom for you. You need to zoom out. And you notice that the pre-comp still has its own 5 seconds. This is how it was created. And all the other layers has been cut off at 5 seconds. Well, this makes sense. After Effects is not going to increase the time of your layers. This is just a solid layer. It will keep it at the original time. If you create a new text, for example, over here, and you say any text, you notice now that the text has gone to the end of the composition. This is a preference that is set, but nevertheless, I am sure you have it until the end. Now, you notice that you have the old layers that are 5 seconds, and you would like this layer to continue, otherwise it will cut off here. To do that, it's very easy. There are 2 ways to do it. The first method is to come to the layer here, go to its end, and when your mouse is like double arrow right, left and right, You just click on it and you extend it. That's one way to do it. Well, if you had 10 layers, what will happen? Let me duplicate this 10 times or something like this. Now you have very many layers. Taking each one of them and stretching it to the end won't work. What you do, you select all the layers, you take the timeline indicator and you put it at the end, or simply you can press the end key. There is a shortcut that I mentioned several times in the course, but now I'm going to be specific. It is Alt or Option on the Mac and the right square bracket. You can see it on your screen. The right square bracket. Here you are. It will extend all the layers till the timeline indicator. I will undo this. So if you put your timeline indicator before and select all your layers and press Alt, Option on the Mac and a right square bracket, it will stretch them, or it will extend them if you like, not stretching, extending till the timeline indicator. You can go back and do it again. Here you are. Of course, the same will happen if you want to cut off your layers at this point, for example. You can use Option or Alt on Windows and the left square bracket. Here you are. You notice what happened. It has cut them off from the beginning till the timeline indicator. So now you know how to extend these layers left and right. But the trick here, does your layer has content? In our case here, it's just a solid, it has content. Let's focus on the pre-comp. Pre-comp is short. And notice that I have a black small triangle here and another one. If I click and try to drag, it's not gonna work at all. Not left, not right. So how do you fix that? Let's open the pre-comp. I can just double click on it. And you notice the pre-comp is 5 seconds. Okay, let's change its time to, for example, 10 seconds or even more. I will right click, go to composition setting and change the time to 10 seconds. Here you are. Even 15 seconds if you like, or whatever time you want. I will click OK. Now, of course, it did not zoom in. It kept it at the same zoom. So you need to zoom in. And you notice here the layers has been cut. And there is different cut because this layer has been moved just like this. Okay? So you need to extend these layers. Why? Because if you come back to the main comp, you notice now it is open to be extended. Cool. But there is no content here. If you notice at 6 seconds, you go to your pre-comp, there is no content. So you need to extend the layers, provided they have content and they are not videos, of course. So you select all your layers, here you are, and then you put the timeline indicator at the end. Of course, you can stretch them one by one if you like, that's no problem. But then the best way is to press Alt or Option on the Mac and the right square bracket. So now all your layers are going till the end of this pre-comp. If you come back to the main comp, and now you need to extend it. Well, you can use Alt or Option right bracket, or click on it and just stretch it at the end. I would go for the Alt right bracket. Now notice here you have the black rectangle again. It means this is the end of this pre-comp and this is the beginning of the pre-comp. Actually, that's all there is to it. If you have a short main composition, you will extend its time through its settings and then go back to your pre-comp and also extend its time and extends the layers and come back to your main comp here and also extend all the layers using the arrow or using the Alt or Option right brackets. Thank you very much for listening. I hope this was helpful. And I hope I summarized it in a concise way. It's pretty easy, by the way, and you need to get used to it. So from now on, don't create short comps. Create longer comps and then shorten them. That will be easier. Thank you. I will see you in the next lecture.